In the heart of a forgotten village, where the winds whispered secrets and shadows danced at twilight, a young man stumbled upon a job offer so tempting, yet so terrifying, that it would change the course of his destiny forever. This is his story. And it begins with a simple choice: to step forward or turn back. In the small village of Kisumo, nestled between misty hills and dense baobab forests, lived a young man named Obinna. Life in Kisumo was slow, woven together by the rhythms of farming, drumming, and the age-old art of storytelling around the night fires. Obinna, like many others, dreamt of something greater. He was strong, clever, and filled with a restless hunger that could not be satisfied by tilling the stubborn earth day after day. Every night, he would sit outside his family's mud hut, staring into the endless blackness of the savanna sky, wondering if the stars could see his longing. One particularly dry season, when crops failed and the river shrank into a thin, weeping line, Obinna decided it was time. He would leave Kisumo and find work in the larger towns beyond the hills. "I will not return until I have made something of myself," he told his aging mother, her eyes glassy with a mixture of fear and pride. Carrying little more than a worn satchel, a carved walking stick, and a heart full of dreams, Obinna set out. The journey was long and cruel. Dust clung to his skin, and thorny bushes tore at his clothes. Days blurred into nights. Food was scarce, but determination fed his spirit. One evening, as the blood-red sun sank behind a jagged mountain, Obinna stumbled upon a narrow, twisting path he had never seen before. At its mouth stood an ancient tree, the Ayabo tree, known in village lore to be a guardian of thresholds between worlds. And there, pinned to the bark with a silver thorn, was a parchment. The writing shimmered strangely in the dying light. "Wanted. A worker for the House of Many Doors. Payment beyond imagination. Seek the red door by midnight." Obinna's breath caught. The red door. He had heard the elders speak of it in hushed tones. A doorway that appeared only to those desperate enough, or foolish enough, to seek it. Still, hunger gnawed at his belly, and the heavy weight of failure pressed down on him. Without much thought, driven by a force he could not name, Obinna tore the parchment free and followed the twisting path. The woods grew darker, thicker, the trees seeming to lean inward as if trying to whisper warnings into his ears. The moon was a pale sliver, offering little light. Then suddenly he saw it. A red door, freestanding in the middle of a clearing. No walls, no building, just the door bathed in an eerie crimson glow. It pulsed softly, as if breathing. Obinna approached cautiously. When he reached out to touch the brass handle, a chilling voice echoed around him. "Once entered, the path changes forever. Do you still seek to work?" His heart hammered in his chest. But he was not a coward. "I seek it," he whispered. The door creaked open, revealing a blackness so deep it seemed to swallow sound itself. Obinna stepped through, and the door slammed shut behind him with a deafening boom. He found himself standing inside a vast, dimly lit hall. Candles floated midair, their flames motionless despite the lack of walls. Rows upon rows of doors stretched into infinity, each door a different color, size, and design. Some were ornate and golden, others were plain wood or carved stone. Some doors whispered. Some thudded, as if something behind them longed to escape. A tall, thin man appeared seemingly out of nowhere, draped in a cloak stitched from the wings of black birds. His face was hidden by a mask carved of bone. "You are the new worker," the man said, his voice dry and brittle like leaves. "Your task is simple. Each day you must choose one door to open and perform the task it reveals. Succeed, and you will be rewarded. Fail, and you may not see the next sunrise." Before Obinna could ask a question, a key made of braided vines appeared in his hand. "Choose wisely," the man said, fading into mist. Obinna stood there, heart pounding, staring at the endless sea of doors. His first day, he chose a simple-looking oak door with a lion's head knocker. Inside, he found himself in a sunlit field where golden goats grazed. A scroll floated before him, stating, "Lead the herd to safety before nightfall." Grateful for an easy beginning, Obinna herded the goats through the fields, across rivers and over rocky hills. It was harder than it looked. Some goats ran off, others fought him, but by dusk, he had gathered them all under a massive baobab tree. As the last ray of sun disappeared, a loud horn sounded, and the field dissolved into mist. Obinna woke back in the hall of doors, a small, heavy bag at his feet. Inside were gold coins, more than he had ever seen. The next day, a brass door with vines etched into it caught his eye. Inside, he had to solve riddles spoken by ancient spirits. Each day brought a new task, some easy, some terrifying. He fought shadows, tended to invisible gardens, carried whispered messages between the living and the dead. He began to change. His arms grew stronger, his mind sharper. But he also grew wary, always glancing behind him, for sometimes, at the edge of his vision, he saw things, movements, figures that shouldn't be there. One night, after what felt like months, though time twisted strangely here, the masked man appeared once again. "You have done well, worker," he said. "But a time comes when every worker must make a choice. Continue opening doors, or open the final door." Obinna frowned. The final door. The man's voice softened to a whisper. "The door that shows you your true reward, or your true doom." Obinna's skin prickled. He thought of the gold he had amassed, the strength he had gained. But he also thought of home, of Kisumo, of his mother's lined face and the dusty fields. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to find out what awaited him beyond all this. Obinna moved carefully through the endless hall of doors, his footsteps silent against the mist-shrouded ground. The regular doors, red, blue, green, gold, still stretched out infinitely around him, but now he noticed something new, a faint silver thread, barely visible, weaving through the space, guiding him. He gripped the vine key tighter and followed the thread. The hall grew colder. The doors around him grew older too, splintered, rotting, some hanging off their hinges, others bleeding black sap. And the whispers grew louder. "Turn back. Not this way. He waits beyond." Obinna shook his head, steeling his mind. He had come too far. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he found it. A massive, obsidian black door, carved with thousands of tiny symbols, strange, twisting glyphs that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. At the center of the door was a single, keyhole shaped like a twisted root. Without hesitation, Obinna inserted the vine key. It twisted by itself, once, twice, and the door creaked open with a groan that sounded like a dying giant. Inside was nothing but darkness. But from the darkness came a voice, not dry and brittle like the masked man's, but smooth, rich, and deep, like honey laced with poison. "Come, seeker. Claim what you deserve." Obinna stepped inside. Immediately, the door slammed shut behind him, sealing him in pitch blackness. He felt the ground shift beneath his feet, and a terrible dizziness overcame him. It was as if he was falling upward and downward at once. When he could finally see again, he found himself standing in an entirely different place. Gone was the hall of doors. He stood now in a vast, empty savanna under a blood-red sky. The grass was dry and sharp, the air heavy with the scent of ash and old sorrow. In the distance, a figure waited by a gnarled tree. Obinna approached cautiously. The figure was a man, or had once been a man. His skin was cracked like old leather, and where his eyes should have been were only empty, smoldering sockets. But he smiled warmly. "Welcome, Obinna," the figure said, voice rumbling like distant thunder. "You have proven yourself. And so, it is time for your reward." Obinna swallowed hard. What is the reward?" The figure chuckled. "Power beyond imagining. Wealth beyond dreams. Life beyond life." Obinna's heart twisted. It was what he had wanted, wasn't it? To rise above his humble beginnings. To be something more. The figure stretched out a hand. "But first, a choice. There is always a choice." Suddenly, the air shimmered, and two paths appeared before Obinna. To the left, a path lined with glittering golden stones, leading to a shining city in the distance, its towers piercing the bloody sky. To the right, a path of cracked earth and thorns, leading into a dense black forest where no light penetrated. "Choose," the figure said simply. Obinna hesitated. The golden city shimmered with promise. He could almost hear music and laughter from its streets. The forest, on the other hand, pulsed with dread. "Remember," the figure added, voice soft, "the brightest light often casts the darkest shadows." Obinna closed his eyes. His instincts, honed through years of hardship and old stories whispered by fireside, screamed at him. The easy path was a lie. He turned toward the forest. The figure's grin widened, though whether in approval or cruelty, Obinna could not tell. As he stepped onto the thorny path, the world around him shifted again. Now he stood at the edge of the forest. The trees were impossibly tall, their trunks twisting like anguished spirits. The ground was littered with bones, some small, some alarmingly large. The air was thick, making it hard to breathe. Still Obinna pressed on. Branches clawed at him. Invisible things brushed against his skin. At times he thought he heard children crying, women screaming, men whispering secrets he wasn't meant to hear. But he didn't stop. He remembered his mother's face. He remembered the pride he had once felt. He remembered that true rewards were never given freely. They were earned through pain and perseverance. At the heart of the forest, he found it. A small hut, made of woven reeds and bones, sagging under the weight of sorrow. Smoke drifted from its crooked chimney. Inside, sitting cross-legged on a mat of snake skins, was an ancient woman. Her skin so wrinkled it looked like bark, her hair a tangled cloud of white. She looked up and smiled toothlessly. "You seek power, boy," she rasped. Obinna nodded. "Then you must pay the price." She held out a bowl filled with dark, viscous liquid. "Drink, and you will know all. But once drunk, you can never return to who you were." Obinna stared at the bowl. The liquid smelled of earth and blood and forgotten dreams. He hesitated. Was this truly the reward he wanted? Then he thought again of Kisumo. If he returned now empty-handed, he would have nothing to offer. But if he succeeded, if he truly gained power, he could lift his entire village from poverty. He could become a legend, a savior. With a trembling hand, he took the bowl. He drank. The liquid was ice-cold, burning as it slid down his throat. Immediately, Obinna collapsed to the ground, writhing as visions overtook him. He saw himself wearing robes of kings, ruling over cities with an iron hand. He saw people kneeling before him, chanting his name. But he also saw blood, oceans of it, and heard screams, endless and pitiful. He realized too late that power was not given for free. It demanded a terrible price. When he woke, he was no longer in the hut. He stood once again in the Hall of Doors, but now the doors were silent. No whispering, no movement, and he was not alone. The masked man stood before him. "You have drunk the cup of change," the man said, bowing slightly. "You are no longer merely Obinna. You are now the keeper of doors." Obinna staggered back. I didn't ask for this," he shouted. The man's voice was cold. "You chose. The final door opened because you willed it so. And now, you belong to the house, as all keepers do." From the mist, dark figures emerged. Other keepers, masked and silent, watching. A heavy, ancient key appeared in Obinna's hand, this one black and twisted, thrumming with terrible energy. He realized, with a deep, soul-crushing certainty, that he would never leave. He would tend the house. He would recruit others. He would guard the doors. Forever. The masked man, who Obinna now knew to call First Keeper, gestured silently. From the mists of the hall, a path appeared. Narrow, winding, lined with doors unlike any Obinna had yet seen. These doors were huge, towering twice his height. Each one throbbed with a faint, sickly green light, as if something alive pulsed behind them. Your first duty, first keeper said, his voice distant, is to feed the doors. Feed them. Obinna whispered, a chill creeping up his spine. Every door, the first keeper explained, hungers for something. Some for memory, some for blood, some for things far worse. If you do not feed them, they will find their own sustenance. Obinna's heart hammered against his ribs. What do I feed them? The first keeper turned away without answering. The other keepers, silent and solemn, handed him a heavy sack, rough and squirming. Obinna didn't dare open it. The new path swallowed him in shadows. The first door he approached was carved from bone, stitched together with sinew. Upon it, a single word, written in a language he didn't know, pulsed with light. He remembered the first keeper's instructions. Follow the silver thread. Always. There it was again, a faint silver filament weaving through the air, connecting him to each door in turn. He stood before the first door. The sack in his hands whimpered. Taking a deep breath, Obinna opened it slightly. Inside, huddled and trembling, was a small, furry creature, eyes wide with terror. It wasn't human. Not exactly. But it wasn't animal either. Looked made. Won't. Obinna turned away, bile rising in his throat. I'm sorry, he whispered as he pressed the creature against the bone door. Immediately, the door cracked open a sliver, and dozens of black tendrils snatched the offering, pulling it inside. The door pulsed once, shivered, and fell silent. Obinna stumbled back, gasping. One door fed. Dozens more to go. Hours, maybe days, passed as Obinna fed the doors. Each door was worse than the last. One demanded he sing old songs of sorrow until his voice bled. Another would not open unless he wept real, soul-deep tears onto its frame. Another required a secret, one he had never spoken aloud, even to himself. With each offering, Obinna felt a piece of himself eroding. This was the cost of being keeper. Finally he came to the end of the path. The last door. It was different from the others. Smaller, simpler. An ordinary wooden door, weathered and cracked, with no light around it. The silver thread ended here. Obinna hesitated. Something about this door felt wrong. Not evil exactly, but final. He reached for the handle and froze. Behind him, a voice whispered, "Not that one, little keeper." Obinna spun around. Standing in the mist was a girl, no more than 10 years old, barefoot, her dress torn and stained. Her eyes were black pools, endless and ancient. "Why?" Obinna asked, heart racing. "Because that door doesn't feed," she said, smiling sadly. "It takes." "Takes what?" She tilted her head. "Everything." Obinna stepped back from the door. The girl pointed to another path that had not been there before, a hidden way twisting deeper into the house. Without thinking, Obinna followed her. The hall grew colder, darker. The silver thread was gone now. Only the girl's faint silhouette guided him. They emerged into a new place, a vast domed chamber filled with ancient mirrors, cracked, tarnished, endless. Each mirror reflected not Obinna's current form, but a different version of him. In one he was old, bent, and alone. In another he was rich, surrounded by gold and corpses. In yet another he was monstrous, his skin blackened, his teeth like knives. "These are the fates you escaped," the girl said softly. "Escaped?" She nodded. "By choosing the forest, by drinking the cup. You avoided these lives. But..." She gestured to a mirror at the center of the room, untouched, whole. Obinna approached it. In its surface he saw himself, just as he was now, but behind him stood hundreds of doors, all chained and locked, all trembling violently. "You are their keeper now," the girl whispered. "You are their prison, their warden, their slave." Obinna's knees buckled. "There must be a way out," he gasped. The girl smiled, a sad, broken smile. "There is always a door," she said. "But sometimes opening it is worse than staying." Obinna woke with a jolt. He was back in the main hall. First keeper stood before him, silent and waiting. You have completed your first task, he said. Obinna opened his mouth to speak, to demand answers, but a heavy silence pressed down on him, stealing his words. The first keeper handed him a mask, simple white with no eyes or mouth. Wear it, he commanded. I don't want to, Obinna whispered. It is not a matter of want, first keeper said. It is a matter of survival. If you wish to keep your soul, hide it. Obinna stared at the mask. And slowly, trembling, he lifted it to his face. The moment it touched his skin, he felt a jolt, like 1,000 invisible chains snapping into place. He no longer felt the cold of the hall. He no longer heard the whispers. He no longer smelled the rot. He no longer felt much of anything at all. And so Obinna, once a simple village boy, became truly a keeper. His life, his old dreams, his old fears, faded into mist. But somewhere, deep in the house, behind the forbidden door he had not opened, something waited. Something that knew his true name. Something that whispered in the darkness. Obinna, come back. Come back to who you were. Weeks, or maybe years, passed in the house. Time was a meaningless, shifting mist. Obinna, now hidden behind the blank white mask, carried out his duties like a shadow, feeding the doors, binding the restless ones, following the silver thread. He forgot the sound of his own voice, forgot the feel of sunlight, forgot almost everything, because deep inside him, one memory clung to life, the forbidden door, the one he had refused to open, the one the little black-eyed girl had warned him about. At night, when the other keepers knelt before the grand mirror to chant their endless prayers, Obinna felt it, a pull, a whisper. Come. Remember. One night, as the mist thickened and the prayers grew distant, Obinna slipped away. He followed a thread of memory through the endless corridors, past doors that shrieked and wept, past statues that wept blood. At last he stood before it again. The simple wooden door, unlit, unmarked, waiting. The forbidden door. This time no girl appeared to stop him. No first keeper called him back. Only silence. Obinna reached for the handle. The wood was warm beneath his fingertips, pulsing, alive. He hesitated. 1,000 unseen eyes seemed to fix on him. This was a betrayal. This was forbidden. But somewhere deep inside him, a stronger voice said, better to die free than to live as a ghost. Obinna turned the handle. The door creaked open, and Obinna stepped through. Immediately, he knew he had crossed a boundary that could never be uncrossed. The world beyond was not the house. It was a village, his village. Perfect, peaceful, just as it had been before he took the job. Children played in the fields. Fires burned in hearths. Women laughed as they ground millet under the baobab trees. Obinna stumbled forward, tears flooding his eyes. He smelled the rain on red earth. He felt the heat of the sun on his skin. I'm home, he whispered. No, said a voice behind him. You are not. He turned. Standing at the edge of the village was the little girl, the same one from before. But her black eyes were gone. Now they were Obinna's own eyes staring back at him, full of fear and longing. This is not your home, she said sadly. This is what you traded away. Obinna's heart shattered. He fell to his knees. How do I get it back? He cried. I'll do anything. The girl stepped closer. Anything. He nodded frantically. She pointed at the villagers. They are free because you are not. Their laughter, their peace, their joy. You hold back the darkness in their place. If you wish to return, you must release it. Obinna's blood froze. Release what? The girl's face twisted, becoming cruel and ancient. The doors, she whispered. Open them all. Obinna recoiled. He remembered the doors. Some held hunger that would devour worlds. Some imprisoned spirits that would curse entire bloodlines. Some bound gods best left forgotten. If he opened the doors, his village would be swallowed in a tide of nightmares. Africa itself might bleed and burn. I can't, he choked. I won't. The girl, no longer innocent, no longer human, smiled. Then you are keeper forever. The village shimmered, twisted. The sky cracked open like a broken gourd. Out of the cracks, shadows poured, clawing, screaming things. The children's laughter became shrieks. The women's songs became wails. The baobab trees wept black sap. The illusion shattered completely. Obinna stood once more in the endless house. The door behind him slammed shut, vanishing into mist. He was alone. More alone than he had ever been. In the days that followed, Obinna became different. Darker. He no longer merely fed the doors, he spoke to them. Listened. Learned. They told him secrets. Terrible, forbidden things. How the house was once a place of power, not punishment. How the keepers were once masters, not slaves. How the first keeper had betrayed them all to keep himself alive forever. And most dangerously, how to break the chains. But the cost would be everything. One mist-heavy night, Obinna gathered his strength. He stood before the grand mirror, where the first keeper and the others knelt in endless prayer. Obinna removed his mask. Gasps rippled through the hall. The first keeper rose, fury burning in his one good eye. Blasphemy, he hissed. Treason. Obinna lifted a hand. And all the silver threads binding the doors shattered at once. The hall shook. The mirrors cracked. The doors howled with freedom. No more chains, Obinna said quietly. No. The first keeper screamed, lunging at him. But Obinna was faster. From within himself, he drew forth the power the doors had given him. A swirling storm of broken promises, stolen dreams, and forbidden knowledge. He struck the first keeper down with a single whisper. The others fled into the mist. And then, silence. Obinna stood alone in the ruined hall. Around him, the doors slowly swung open. Out poured all the things long imprisoned. Spirits of hunger. Gods of madness. Shadows older than language. They rushed past him into the world beyond, shrieking in triumph. Obinna felt no fear. He felt peace. 'Cause now, finally, he was free too. No longer a keeper. No longer a prisoner. Just Obinna. But as he turned to leave the house forever, he heard a final voice. Thank you, little keeper, it purred. But freedom is a chain of its own. He turned and saw it. A door he had never seen before. Huge. Golden. Terrible. Its frame was carved with every moment of his life. Every choice, every mistake, every hope. Swung open slowly. Obinna took a step forward. Then another. Because deep down he knew. There's always one more door. And sometimes, the greatest prison is yourself. Obinna stood before the golden door. It pulsed with a heartbeat of its own. Deep, slow, and eternal. The carvings on its surface writhed and shifted. His birth under the blood moon. His mother's tears as she sent him away to find work. His first steps into the house of many doors. All of it. Etched in living gold. Obinna realized the truth. This was no ordinary door. It was him. His life. His choices. His soul. And now it was calling him home. Slowly, carefully he stepped forward. The moment his fingertips brushed the golden surface, the world collapsed inward. The mist of the house. The screaming doors. The broken prayers. The blood of the first keeper. All of it spiraled away, like dust caught in a whirlpool. Obinna fell through darkness. When he awoke, he was somewhere else. Place without time. Without sky. Without ground. Just an endless plain of silver mist and floating lights. Each light whispered, remember. Regret. Rejoice. Obinna wandered. The mist clung to him, heavy and cold. For what felt like lifetimes he searched. For a door, a path, an end. But there was nothing. Only himself. At last, a figure appeared ahead. An old man, cloaked in black feathers, sitting beside a fire that burned without wood. His face was hidden, but Obinna felt the weight of his gaze. "Welcome, little keeper," the man said. His voice was every ancestor Obinna had ever known, and some he wished he hadn't. "Who are you?" Obinna whispered. "The question," said the man. "And the answer." He gestured to the fire. "Sit. Choose." Obinna hesitated. He saw now that two things lay beside the fire. A spear carved from bone, wrapped in ancient runes. A bowl carved from living wood, filled with shimmering water. "One will set you free," the man said. "The other will bind you forever." Obinna frowned. "How do I know which is which?" The man chuckled. "You don't. That's the choice." Obinna sat. The fire crackled between them, casting long shadows. He thought of everything he had seen. The house of many doors. The keepers who forgot themselves. The villagers laughing under false skies. The forbidden things now loose in the world. Was it too late to undo the damage? Or was he already part of the curse? He reached for the bowl. The water shimmered, showing visions. His village. Real this time but scarred and frightened. Spirits wandering free among the living. Shadows perched atop broken trees. He could return. He could warn them. Fight the darkness. Maybe even redeem himself. He reached for the spear. The runes pulsed. He saw himself walking forever across the worlds beyond, hunting the escaped horrors one by one, never resting, never returning, an eternal warrior, forgotten by the world he saved. "Choose," the man said again. Obinna closed his eyes and chose the spear. The mist tore away. The world reformed. Obinna stood once more at the crossroads outside his village, but he was no longer a simple man. The spear rested lightly in his hand, humming with power. Around him, the land was wounded. Trees bent under invisible weight. Rivers ran thick with dreams and blood. Winds whispered names that should not be spoken. The doors had done their work. But Obinna was ready. He walked toward the village. The few who remained, the strong, the stubborn, fled at the sight of him. His face was no longer wholly human. The house had marked him, but he felt no anger, only purpose. He planted the spear in the red earth. Immediately the ground quaked. A circle of light spread outward, burning away the mist and the horrors. At the edges of the world, the freed spirits howled in rage. They came for him, in their hundreds, their thousands. Creatures made of broken time. Beasts stitched from forgotten prayers. Things too vast and wrong to name. Obinna gripped the spear. And he fought. The battle lasted an eternity, or maybe just a heartbeat. Obinna lost count of the blows he struck, of the wounds he suffered. Each spirit he defeated was bound back into a door, a new door of his making. He was no longer merely a man. He was a sealer, a hunter of the broken. Last silence. Obinna stood alone, bloodied but unbroken. Around him, new doors dotted the landscape, strange and silent, each sealed spirit inside, waiting. But Obinna knew the truth. No prison lasts forever. He turned toward the rising sun. The village behind him could rebuild. The world could heal. But he could never stop. There would always be another crack. Another escaped horror. Another cursed soul. Obinna tightened his grip on the spear and walked into the wilderness. A shadow among shadows. A guardian no one would ever sing about. But because of him, the world would go on, never knowing how close it had come to ending. Obinna sought a simple job. But destiny made him the warden of nightmares. The hunter of forgotten things. The last sealer. And so, somewhere in the shifting mists of Africa, where old gods still whisper and broken dreams bleed into the soil, a lone figure walks between the doors of the world. Watching. Waiting. Protecting. Because sometimes, the most dangerous jobs are the ones you never apply for.